This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hello, good morning and welcome to a windy and a slightly chilly Djuma Private Game Reserve on the western edge of the Kruger National Park in South Africa. My name is Brendio Smith. I have Dangerous Dave, the dimpled dish, on camera with me, and it is beautiful. We're going to show you what little of the sunrise we can, because that's probably the last sun we're going to see all drive. As you can see, this wall of cloud rolling in from the south. Remember, hashtag SafariLive if you want to send me any questions on Twitter. If you would like to send me any questions, you can also do it via the YouTube chat. Hello, let's keep going. My plan for today is I'm going to continue to look for Tandian Talamba and also that young Talamati male, and I'm going to use the fastest route down to Torchwood, which is the northern boundary with Buffalo's Hook cut line. And of course, at the end of Safari Lives, there was a mating pair of lions, one Inkauma and one Evoca. So we might bump into them. If we do, we'll stay for a little bit and then hand them on to someone else, because I'm on a mission for Thandi and Kalamba this morning. Now, it's an all-boys affair this morning. We've got James Henry and Patrick Fitzgerald. Patrick is now better known as Patricia in camp on the other vehicle here in South Africa, and we have my dear friend who can't catch any fish in Cozy Bay, Tristan Dex, on the other side in the Mara. And there we go, the light is gone. As I said, we're not going to see much sun today, and that's why we showed it to you while we could. Now let's have a look. This is the area where the lions were. They could have quite easily toddled off into Buffalo's Hook. They could quite easily be in a very similar place to where they were last night. So I said quite chilly, 18 degrees Celsius, around 64 Fahrenheit, but that's not the chilly part. It's this blustery wind that we're experiencing that is making it a little bit on the chilly side. Ooh, buffalo. Buffalo trackies. I wonder if the mating pair decided to have a buffalo snack in between their feline fornication. We're going to have to wait to see. Oof, it suddenly got very dark again. Okie dokie, well, I'm going to keep heading east down the northern boundary while I mission on. Let's send you all the way to the Masai Mara and the big open grasslands to see what Tristan's up to.
Good morning, everybody, and well, good luck, Brent Leo Smith. Hopefully you'll find something along the northern boundary that will interest you. And you can see that we are starting in the Mara, and it is very dark still. It's overcast and cloudy, and so it's not really much light to deal with at the moment. We haven't really found too much just yet, given how dark it is, other than a lot. When I say a lot of little flying insects that are around after all the rain that we've had. We must have easily had probably close to about 80 millimeters of rain in the last 24 hours or 36 hours. So it is incredibly kind of wet, and that means lots and lots of insects. Now, remember that I should introduce myself, or that you shouldn't remember that, I should remember that. My name's Tristan on camera. I've got Archie this morning, and it is, like I say, a warm welcome to the East African side of the drive. Hopefully it will be a productive one after all this rain. Hopefully things will be out and about. There's definitely going to be a lot of insects flying around, and a lot of insects often means quite interesting things. We should maybe see lots of nice birds of prey that could be flying about, feeding off this little hatch of insects that are kind of flying. We should maybe even see some of the smaller animals that are more nocturnal, so things like bat-eared fox and white-tailed mongoose, those kind of things. They will be out as well. So, MGM, you say this looks like a sunset drive. Well, yes, it's dark, isn't it? It's not very, very light at all. The sun hasn't seemed to pierce the clouds yet, and I suppose it's been like this for the last kind of 36 hours, I would say. It rained pretty much the whole time, and it came down at some points very, very hard. So I mean, the Mara needed it. It was very dry, and so, you know, the rain is welcome. It's definitely going to make a big difference. In fact, there's a little water point that we draw our water from, and we kind of, that's how we get water into the camp. And that little water point was about 2 weeks away from drying up completely, which meant that we would have had to truck in water, which would have been a bit of a disaster. So it's good that it's rained. I'm just not so happy that it's rained while I'm here. It seems as though whenever I'm here, it just pours and pours and pours and pours and gets quite sort of damp. And so we're going to have to be a bit careful about where we drive today. It's definitely going to need a bit of time to dry out, and without any sun and cloud cover like we've got, it's going to take that much longer. So we'll just have to be a little bit kind of careful about where we head and what we actually get ourselves into today. We wouldn't want to join Marshmallow Club because Brent Leo Smith will never, ever, ever, ever let me live that down, even though Brent Leo Smith got stuck more times than most, which he'll never admit. He'll always tell everybody that he didn't. But, you know, we just don't want to even tempt fate. Right, now, Carol, you say you want to see a pangolin. Carol, I think you and probably many others, that we've only ever had one pangolin on SafariLive, and that was Brent that had it, and it was inside the Kruger National Park actually. And so pangolin would be a great one. Funny enough, Manu actually saw a pangolin the other day. He was, I don't know where he was down near Kilo 2, and he was rushing for the gate, and I think they'd gone to go and do a battery swap at one of our repeaters. And they came across a pangolin crossing the road, and they didn't have a camera with them, which is not very nice at all. It was him and one of our other staff that works with us. And so there are pangolins around in the Mara, just not something that you see all that often. But maybe we'll head in that direction. It's the same area where we left Kekenya, and so you never know. Maybe, just maybe, there's a pangolin waiting for us this morning, given how many insects are out and about. Wouldn't that be wonderful? I would be very, very happy and very chuffed with the pangolin, I must be honest. Now, I just came past this area here just to come and have a look to see if the lions are maybe hanging about. The Olololo Pride likes to hang around where we are now, so we're just checking for them, but it doesn't seem as though they're here today, so we'll carry on down, and then we're going to probably head towards the Mara River, simply just because I want to go and see what's happening with the river and how high it is, or if it's gotten up a little bit, because it was extremely low at one point. The other day I was watching crocodiles trying to drag themselves through water rather than actually swim, so it will be nice to go and check if it's just kind of gotten a little higher than before. So don't worry, Andrea, that is part and parcel of my Mara River kind of turn. So what we're going to do is we're going to go basically down the escarpment here, and then we'll head towards the marsh a little bit. We're not going to go into the marsh itself because that's a suicide mission. We're going to get ourselves stuck if we go into the marsh. So we'll go and check the Batty at Foxton, and then we'll come back and we'll wind our way along towards sort of River Road, and then down towards the crossings, and then back up, and then towards where Kekenya was last, or where we last saw Kekenya. That's the kind of plan for the morning. Hopefully it will be a successful one. There's always lots and lots of other things that we can see along the way, and so, you know, you never know. Maybe we'll get detoured slightly, but we'll see how it goes. But you can see already there is a lot more water on the ground than what there was sort of 36 hours ago. It was quite dry actually. The roads were fairly good to drive, and now there's a lot of kind of standing water all over the place, which, like I say, is good news if you are an animal or an insect, I suppose. Water is good for all of those things, so can't begrudge the animals water, that's for sure. It just makes driving a little bit more tricky. But also on our way to the Batty at Foxden, actually, we need to have a little look out for that black rhino that David had. We had a look at it nicely yesterday after the show, just to have a kind of check, because when we were doing the drive the other day where we had the power issue and we had to end drive early, we saw a black rhino as well. And then when I went to go and film some Batty at Fox stuff, with James, our cam op, when I was off one morning, we saw the same black rhino. So I've seen him 3 times this week. He's quite easy to identify. He's got very kind of notched ears, and his right ear's got a little piece that hangs down, much like Corky's left ear. And so he's quite easy to recognize. But yeah, we saw him, like I say, 3 times in the space of about 5 days. So he's hanging around quite a bit, and so we'll go and have a little look, see if we can maybe find him. He seems to be quite chilled, which is always quite nice when you get a relaxed black rhino. Good. Right, now I'm going to keep heading, like I say, down towards the main road. Try not to get stuck. While I do that, though, let's send you back to Brent Leo Smith, who's still on the search for things that are big with sharp teeth and very sharp claws.
Yes, but I would forego a sighting of things that are big, that have teeth and very sharp claws, if Tristan got stuck. That would be joy enough for me this morning. Especially because it's so cold and windy. I think the thought, even just the thought of Tristan getting stuck warms me up deep inside. Okay, we've made it to the eastern edge of Djuma. And Kirsten, I don't know if Kirsten says it warms the cackles of your heart. I don't know if your heart has cackles, Kirsten. I think you're mixing metaphors there. I think you're mixing metaphors, Kirsten. Kirsten says it's early. Yes, that's not no excuse. Okay, so as you can see, I've slowed down a little bit now that I've got to the area where I want to start my search from. And what has happened here overnight? We have some high-speed buffalo coming through. High-speed zebra, actually. Buffalo are not so high speed, but these zebra have come through here at a serious rate of knots. And you see them there, Dave? And these are zebra running like something is trying to feast upon them. So what I'm doing is I'm just checking carefully in between to see if I cannot spot a running lion track. But I do not. The other thing is, with zebras, as we know, they fight quite heavily amongst each other, so it could just be, I don't know, lions. I said that look like the zebras that absolutely... Lion, are you stalking me? She's stalking me. Is there something I can't see? What are you doing, you silly thing? You look like she might be stalking us for a second. I don't think she is. I think it is something on the other side of the road. I can only see 3 lionesses at the moment. But as I said, those zebra tracks look like there was complete panic. And you know what's better than finding running lion tracks after running zebra tracks? Finding the lions that missed the said zebra, and they have now given up and are despondent. Let us go closer. So that's why you always need to be very, very conscious of everything around you. Just those little tracks gave us an idea that something was around. But in the meantime, we're going to get a bit close to the lions, and we're going to go across to Patricia to say good morning.
Hello everybody and welcome. I am back from leave. My name is Patrick, and joining me on camera today we have Seb. So we have stopped over here at this tree because we have found a little red-headed buffalo weaver. So we have stopped to take a look. It is... Ooh, where's it gone? Can we see it? We've lost the bird, but it left its nest for us to look at, so that's great. So we can see this nest looks very messy, but I'm sure it has some intricate design on the inside. And this is actually what the male will use to attract a mate when he wants to breed. So they will display their nests and sit and hope that a female finds it suitable enough for her. And sorry, I call it a red-headed buffalo weaver, and it's a red-billed buffalo weaver. So please do forgive me for that. I've still got holiday brain, I think. Oh no, this is the red-headed buffalo weaver I've got. Oh, it's the red-headed weaver, sorry. I've completely botched that one. I apologise, everybody. It is the red-headed weaver. I was right to begin with. So they are monogamous, which means that's pretty much a fancy way of saying that they will mate for life. These birds, once they have found a pair, which is relatively common in nature, you will see mostly polygamous though. But I find in birds and fish seems to be monogamy is most prominent. And then as for humans, well, I'll leave that for everyone else to debate. I'm not stepping in on that one today. Well, the bird that we were looking at has obviously decided to take off, so I think we will do the same. We are actually on the hunt for Hosanna today, so fingers crossed we can see the little chief. It's been a couple of weeks for me, so I've been missing the little boy quite a bit and want to see his beautiful face again, so we'll keep moving on. I did have a lovely leave, thank you everyone for asking. And Kathy, I did. I stayed in camp for about a week, but I did also get away to Cape Town, which was beautiful. It was my first time there, and yeah, it's got an awesome coastline, awesome vibe. All the people there were really cool. I got along with everyone really well, so I think it's definitely a place I'm going to be visiting again. I didn't get to bring my boards over with me, but I did get to scope out some good breaks. So fingers crossed in the coming months on leave I can get my boards from Australia and go hit up Cape Town for a surf. But no, it's nice to be back. Well, enough about me. Let's go back to the lions with, I can't think of a good girl's name for Brent, but let's go see him.
Oh, Patricia, you'll get better at thinking on your feet. When you guys tell me which lions these are, can you see any distinguishing features? #SafariLive. Most likely Nkomas. They're just acting quite nervous now. That could be because of avoca males. It could be for multiple reasons, but they just seem to be a little bit nervous this morning. It could be this strong wind as well. Looking quite hungry. Oh, tired kitty. As I think they've expended quite a bit of energy trying to catch zebra from the tracks we could see. I think this is the Nkomas, or 3 of them at least. A new scar on the nose if it is, well, between the eyes at least. Now what's amazing, in a couple of weeks, if they were lying where they are now, we wouldn't be able to see them because of the round leaf teak. All these little plants, these little stems you're seeing in front of them. If we go to the back a little bit over there, David, you can see the leaves. You can see the leaves starting to blossom on the round leaf teak, and in 2 or 3 weeks you won't be actually able to see into the teak at all, and if they're lying down like this, they would be invisible. But at the moment, thankfully, they are not. They're looking longingly in the direction of where the zebra tracks disappeared. Let's have a look. Oh, we're just going to have a little groom. They're hungry, but they're not starving yet. Oh, flop down next to the other there. Michael says he thinks there might be Talamati lionesses, given how close we are to Buffalo's Hook. Well, we are quite close. We're on the border of Torchwood. Buffalo's Hook is probably about 100 meters to the north of us. And so their behavior didn't seem like Inkahumas. I haven't spent much time with the Talamatis. So I'm just going to try maneuver again. Let's see if we can see a bit better. As I said, they just seemed a little bit nervous, and the Inkahumas, as a general rule, are very, very relaxed around vehicles. You see, she's dropping her head already. You can see her there. No. Yeah. Not relaxed. Well, relaxed, but not Inkahuma relaxed. The wide eye of a lion that's alert. Now, of course, the Talamatis and the Inkahumas were once upon a time the same pride. And the Inkahumas broke away from them. Lily says, that is an intense stare. Indeed it is. Oh, this one's pretty. She's got a very nice face. This one's face we haven't been able to see too clearly yet. Ah, I know that one. I do know that it is. I'm pretty sure that's the blind Talamati. I am pretty sure I have a picture of it as well, so I can double check. Windy, windy, windy. Talamati, Talamati. I think that is indeed her. She looked down again. I'm just gonna try to get another view of her. Jamie says yes, Talamati. Slowly, slowly. Now, if I do it like this, in little increments, they're not going to be as jumpy. You can already see she's not as alert as she was the first time we tried to drive in. Let's have a look at the blind Talamati. That's definitely her. Let's have a look in her ears there. On the right ear, there should be a slit. Yeah. That is definitely the blind-eyed Talamati lioness. Now, as far as I know, they think she's given birth somewhere near the northern boundary of Buffalo's Hook. Costa is wondering, do adult lions groom each other? Indeed they do, Costa. It's a very important part of lion dynamics. So there we go. There's that Talamati lioness, and you can see quite a distinctive nick out of her ear, and also a very distinctive schnoz. We haven't been able to see that properly yet, but there you can see very distinctive around the nose. Now, apparently that blind eye, which in lions can be caused by many different things, was actually caused by a kick from a zebra. But it could be anything from a fight, a thorn, a spitting cobra, lots of different reasons why you can have that opaque eye in lions. Also, of course, hereditary diseases and things like that, but generally those are a little bit more rare than actually injuries or other stuff to cause blindness in a single eye. If it was a hereditary disease, we would probably be seeing it in both our eyes, but we only see that in one eye. That could also explain their slight nervousness, because they do not come this far south very often. They are generally north and east of here. MGN would like to know, how would having one eye affect her hunting with the Pride? Of course, depth perception is one of the things that it might affect, but in my experience I've seen lots of one-eyed big cats, and it hasn't seemed to be too much to their detriment. She seems to be doing perfectly well. Oof, this wind is, however, quite horrible. Of course, decent hunting weather, although it doesn't look like they're going to be doing too much hunting just yet. So I think I'll stay here for a little bit longer before heading off to continue my search for Thandi and Tlalamba. But in the meantime, let's go see if Tristan's made it all the way to the Mara River.
Well, good luck, Brent. Hopefully you'll find Thandi at some point. As you can see, we have something else that starts with a T, a little Thompson's gazelle that's wagging its tail with much vigor and glee as it walks along. And it's a little bit nervous, and I'm not surprised. There's, it's kind of on the road, and there's little sort of banks on either side of the road, and I don't think this little guy will be able to, or little lady, should I say, will be able to actually see over those banks very well, and so probably a little nervous of what's on either side of them, which you can see kind of just walking down the road. And I always laugh because when they walk, their tail goes crazy. As soon as they stop walking, the tail stops, and that's probably a strategic maneuver. It's probably hardwired into them that when predators are around and they stop and they look, part of their sort of a way that they're going to stop being hunted is if they stand dead still in camouflage. And so if they stop and their tail is still moving, it's obviously going to attract a lot of attention. So when they stop, you'll find that the tail slows right down in comparison to when they are actually walking. Such funny little animals, they really are. And why this one is on its own, I have no idea. I've seen it here a few days in a row, that it's been here, and I'm surprised that it's on its own. Generally, you don't find Tommies being too much by themselves. They typically will be in small little groups together, so it's a shame that it's by itself. Maybe it'll find some other Tommies, hopefully at some point, but there it goes. And kind of see it's moving down the road. There's also a big giant balloon just ahead of it that's in the sky at the moment. Oh, that's actually moved quite fast. Zephyr, you say now you're going to always look at their tails when they walk. Well, yes, I would imagine so, Zephyr. It's something you can't ignore. Once you notice it for the first time, you can't ignore it at all, and it becomes a little bit tricky. Now, one thing I wanted to show you actually while we're here is that there is on my right-hand side, you can see how wet it is at the moment, and this is all just thanks to one night basically, or maybe 2 nights of hippo activity. So you can see there's this massive muddy path that is going into the bush at the moment, and so that is just from hippos going up and down here. You can see their tracks are all over the place. They've been sliding as they've been trying to kind of go up this little embankment, and they've kind of mowed this massive muddy sort of section. So that gives you an idea of how wet it is when hippos walk around and they make that, then it's been quite a bit of rain. So it just gives you an idea. Now the nice thing about rain is that tracks are visible, and so we've already seen some tracks for lions, which I would imagine would be potentially the Mara River Pride kind of heading into the marsh itself. But we'll just double check, because the tracks were kind of going along the road and then they turned off a little bit, but they might come back on at some point again, and we might sort of find them somewhere here. So it's always worth just scratching around when you find nice tracks. It's hoping that you're going to spot things. So we'll see, maybe we'll get lucky with them. But I can tell you is that there's very few animals actually in the marsh today compared to what they were prior to the rain. So just before the rain we were seeing all kinds of species, from giraffe, zebra, topi, wildebeest, eland, buffalo, elephants, to now where we've got very little kind of happening, just our little lone Tommy. Sorry, little Thompsons, can I just come past? Would that be alright with you? Thank you. Shame. It's probably so nervous to run in the grass with all the kind of predators that hang around you, from, you know, jackals to leopards and cheetah and lions. There's many things that will unfortunately go after a little Tommy. Now we're heading to the Batty at Foxden. It's not that far away, so from where we are at the moment, the road's going to turn slightly to the left, then we're going to get a big tree on our right hand side, and we're just going to go around that. And so once we get around that, we'll get to the den. So while we head there, let's send you back across to Pat, who has found a big bird of prey up in a tree.
Yes, we do. We have a vulture up here, more specifically the white-backed vulture, perched up in a dead tree right now, one of the 5 vulture species that we get here, the other being the caped, the black-faced, the white-headed and the hooded. This one is the white-backed, probably, well, definitely the most common one that we see, definitely the most common one we see for sure. Sitting up in a dead tree, which may indicate that there is a kill around, but I really don't think so, because there's no other vultures around and there's no alarm calling, there's nothing else happening. So this one just seems to be resting inactively. And of course it is a cold morning. It's about 18 degrees Celsius or 84 degrees Fahrenheit. So there wouldn't be really any thermals for it to soar this morning, being a colder morning. So it's just going to sit up in the tree and stay warm. And we had some geese flying past there. Sorry, I missed that. Connor, do I have a favourite bird? Well, that's a really good question. The terracos that I saw in the Mara, they were absolutely beautiful. So they are definitely up there. And it's hard to go past a good eagle as well. They're so majestic, like the steppe eagle and everything like that. The Ross's Taraco, that's the one it was. It's an absolutely beautiful bird. Big red crest and blue body, and when it opened up its feathers you could see all these colours on the underside of its wing. It was a real phenomenal sighting. And that's actually a morning that James specifically took me out to bird, so we were very blessed to find something both rare and beautiful. Well, I think it's time to move on from this big, beautiful bird of prey and continue on. I think we might go and try and check some lions. Will be the go. And while I'm doing that, let's head over to Tristan, who has something that I didn't quite hear.
Well, yes, you are back with me, and we've gotten to our den, which is wonderful news. You can see some of the little bat-eared foxes are out there all curled up in tight little balls. I'd imagine they're rather damp and probably quite cold. It's obviously been a few days of rain, and these poor guys will be out at night walking through the grasses, and they would have collected a lot of moisture, and they'll be unfortunately fairly kind of damp, and so you can see they're kind of cuddled up at the moment. They turn themselves into this tiny little ball, and even those little ears almost get tucked down as they try and just kind of conserve as much sort of heat as possible and try and kind of fold themselves in so that they insulate themselves. The one kind of ran away and went down into the burrow, but we've still got what looks like 3 of them out. It's difficult to tell when they're rolled up like this because they're quite tricky to kind of make out one from another, particularly the smaller ones. They're a little bit harder to kind of see, but essentially there should be, I've only seen 5. I'll get James, who spent a bit more time here, our cameraman James, he said to me he had 6 here the other day, so I've only ever seen 5, but it looks as though the 3 of them are out at the moment. Now, these guys are super cool little animals. Obviously, we don't see many of them at all. In fact, mostly what we see is, well, we don't see them in the Sabi Sands. We only see them here in the Mara, and even here in the Mara, they're not an easy kind of animal to find, typically because they're mostly nocturnal and because they're quite shy. You don't see huge amounts of them kind of hanging out and taking it very easy out in the open during the course of the day. Most of the time they are out only at night, and here in the Mara there is a decent population of them. You will find quite a few. Look at how cute that is. Hey, little gun. Just decided, no, there's too much commotion, I'm going down. So it's going to head, looks like, down into the burrow and go and kind of hide away inside there. And it's amazing. You wouldn't think that there's a den there with the sort of way that the grass looks. You wouldn't think that there's actually a little hole inside. And unfortunately, there's too many cars coming, possibly because there's all the cars coming for the balloons. And so that's why they're probably all heading down now. And that's means that we're going to be left with just the one at this stage, who hopefully will stay out. But like I was saying, you find that they'll come out at night, and they're going to be eating mostly insects. So they're insectivorous for the most part, and what they'll be feeding on is generally termites. So in most places, termites will make up about 80% of their diet. So they'll feed on those things, and then every now and then they'll catch up with little beetles and grubs and various other insects that occur out here. So, but most of it will be termites that they'll kind of go after. And it's an interesting kind of thing that they are built the way that they are, and they're very fox-like in their looks, but they don't really go after too many bigger animals. Ravinda, from what I've read, no. I haven't read anything about them feeding off vegetation. For the most part, what they're feeding off is like I say, insects. And in a place like the Mara, it's such a insect-rich environment, particularly because of the amount of rainfall that occurs here. There's a lot more rain here than you'll find in many other parts of Africa, and so it's quite easy for them. In the desert, I'm not sure. I suppose there's not really many vegetarian options in the desert unless it's the rainy season. So, from what I've read, no. From what I've read, most it's insectivorous animals, so it's eating most in 99% insects. So I don't think they eat too much vegetation at all. Obviously, our experience with these guys is so limited because we don't see them much in South Africa unless you go and work in the sort of Kalahari area, or there's a few other parts in South Africa that has them, but in the Sabi Sands there's none at all, and so we don't see much of them, and what we understand of them is very kind of limited. But like I say, I was reading up on them as much as I could, and they were saying that they really spend most of their time just looking for insects. They're not hugely fond of vegetation. Now at the moment there is a whole bunch of insects, and I'm a little bit, what's the word for it? I was hoping that Jamie would be on drive, because Jamie will attest to this fact. When there's a certain type of insect here, and it's tiny, and it gets into your sort of shirt, and they go all over, and then they kind of secrete, I would imagine it's a formic acid, and you get kind of little itching things all over your body. It is the worst feeling in the world. Now, Lily, I'm going to go forward quickly just so we can get a better view of this little fox, and then I'll answer your question. You're asking what eats bat-eared foxes. So out here, there's a few things that could potentially eat bat-eared foxes. Oh, there's 2 of them here, actually. There's not just 1. So there were 5 of them out initially. So I still think there's only 5. I'm sure that there is 5 of them. But anyway, I might be wrong. But lily bat-eared foxes, unfortunately, they're going to be eaten probably by quite a number of different predators out here. We know that things like a leopard and lions, they're quite indiscriminate when it comes to catching things. If they can get to it, they'll often kill it. Don't know about cheetahs. I don't think cheetahs would target them too much. The thing about them is that if it's during the day like this, they're going to run into a little burrow and they're going to hide away where they'll stay out of the way from predators. But pythons would probably be a big one, and then birds of prey. So martial eagles would probably be a massive threat to bat-eared foxes. So pretty much anything that, any sort of predator that is bigger than it, really. Servals and caracals, I doubt, would go after them too much. You never know with a serval, with a caracal, but with a serval, definitely not. They're not really powerful enough, probably, to tangle with these little foxes. But everything else would be able to go after them. So, like I say, martial eagles, pythons, lion, leopard. I would imagine wild dogs would be able to take them. Hyenas, if they really wanted to, particularly the young ones. So, those would be the kind of predators for these little guys. But shame, they really are tucked up, aren't they? And trying to stay as warm as possible. Now, unfortunately, there's going to be a tractor that's going to come past. Like I say, this is the balloon run. So every morning when the balloons go up into the air, there's a fleet of vehicles that follows them around, given that they've got to be able to kind of pack it all up. And so you'll find that you get 40 cars that come past you all at once, and so this is the last of them, which is the tractor. Now, Mr. Public, do the fox dens have chambers that are dry? For sure they will. So it's pretty much going to be, I would imagine, inside there will have various little tunnels, and that will lead into a little chamber that will be slightly raised above the little tunnel, and that will allow the guys to be able to kind of get up and sort of sit there and then not have to worry too much about being damp and wet. Remember, when it rains a lot here, obviously there's going to be rain that's going to flood into that thing, and so if they're going to be right down in the bowl of the den, then they're going to have a lot of water issues. So often you'll find, even with things like hyenas, is that there's a slight little elevation, and that's actually where the little ones will spend their time, and even probably the adults in this case, given the size of them. So you'll find that they'll have dry compartments, otherwise they're going to unfortunately get very wet, and a wet den is probably a very bad thing, and also there's a risk then of drowning if it floods too much. So there will definitely be a raised section where they will sleep. But I'm quite surprised at these two that they didn't wake up when the tractor came past. I was thinking that when the tractor sort of moved in this direction, that they would probably in all likelihood want to kind of go back down, but luckily for us they've decided to stay sleeping, which is wonderful news. Look at that, isn't that cute? Shame that it is as tucked up as you could ever imagine. I don't think you're going to get any more curled up than that, and it hasn't even lifted its head for when that tractor came past. James, I haven't seen the jackal family, if I'm honest, where this den is. I did see 2 jackals the other day run past, so they kind of ran off in the distance, but there weren't really any sign of it. Well, there wasn't really any sign of a den, so I might be wrong. I mean, it might still be around, but I haven't seen anything. So, James, you know exactly where it was, because nobody has mentioned a den to me. When I asked Steve and David, they didn't really mention any sign of a den or anything like that. And I suppose if it could be here, maybe in the background somewhere. But I haven't noticed any jackals in the last few days when I've come past here, so I don't think so. I don't know. I mean, how old were the little ones as well? I'm not sure. But like I say, Steve and David haven't mentioned anything about a jackal den close to the bat-eared fox den. They just told me about the bat-eared foxes, and I haven't observed too much jackal behavior around here. It's just the 2 that I saw running past the other day while I was sitting here. But otherwise, there's been no real kind of sign of them. I've looked around as well, and now while we've been sitting here, and I don't see any kind of sign of jackals. I maybe missed them because of the sort of dinginess of the morning, but I don't think so. Certainly can't see any. Like I say, I'll get the binos out and have a little scratch around and see if we can spot anything, but it doesn't look like there's too many jackals around at the moment. What I did see the other day was when we were when we had that power issue, we weren't too far from here actually with the lions, and when we left the lions we found a little serval that had obviously just emerged out of wherever it was hiding. So I wonder if there's a little serval area that's close by here. They kind of come out of nowhere, those things. It's amazing actually to see you driving along and all of a sudden there's this little serval that just stands up, and it's probably due to the fact that they're so well camouflaged. They just find themselves a nice little grassy thicket, and very tricky to actually spot them until they stand up and start moving. But it would be interesting to see whether or not we can find a serval with little kittens. I think we can at some point. We just got to try and kind of put our mind to it a little bit. Now, I believe a lot of you are commenting that their fur looks very, very soft. Yes, it does look a little soft, doesn't it? It almost looks... Now, in fly fishing, you get, when you tie your own flies, you get stuff called dubbin, which is normally fur from a hare or a rabbit, and it kind of has that same look to it. So a nice kind of softish fur, and they certainly are utilizing that fur to the best of their ability to try and stay as warm as possible. Now, this looks like two young ones. The one was an adult that we saw just now that went down, and so probably in all likelihood what we have here is two adults that have had their little ones. They can have up to 6 little, they call them cubs, so they can have 6 of them, anywhere from 1 to 6 obviously. So it's quite possible that it's 2 adults and 4 little ones, or 2 adults and 3 little ones. It's very, very possible. So not sure exactly. Like I say, it's always tricky because some of them are quite shy and they just go away straight away. Then you get others that like this, where they just sit and take it easy. But I suppose the more time we spend here and the more we stop and talk and kind of natter on around them, probably the more relaxed they'll get, and eventually we'll start to see all of them hopefully staying out. Now, I'm pretty sure most of them would have stayed out if it hadn't been for the fact that we had a few vehicles pass us. I think we would have probably seen a lot more of them being out and about, but they're super cute things. Okay, so James, you're saying that there was a jackal den, in close proximity to the bat-eared foxes, and it was somewhere in the background. Now, so that's the den that Archie's showing you there. That's a little hole where the bat-eared foxes go, but I don't see any sign of jackals at all. Maybe the little ones have grown up and they've now moved off and out of the den, or they've changed den locations, but Leah, you say jackal den is to my left near that bush. So in the background there is that little mound in the background area. That maybe is where they were. I'm not sure. When I saw them the other day, they ran from right to left of that bush and then carried on and crossed the road. So maybe they've just moved dens. It's possible. You know, we often see that with a lot of animals, is that when they have their young ones, after a while, there's a build-up of dung and smell and scent, and it gets a bit dirty, and then they'll just change and move somewhere else. So it's possible that the jackal den has maybe moved away, or the little ones, like I say, have gotten big enough now to roam around that they don't have to be at a den site per se. So no sign of them this morning, though. I mean, if they are around, there's definitely can't see anything so far this morning. Hopefully, though, we'll get some sort of sign of them at some stage. Jackals are also super cute when they're young. They're very, very, very cool animals to watch. I enjoy a jackal den. That's the one. Alright, so that was the mound apparently, and I'm afraid no jackals today that I can see. Maybe they're late starters this morning. I suppose it is bed weather after all, and it is overcast and grey and not very pleasant out here, and so I would imagine that being tucked up inside the den is probably the best place. But that's apparently where we're talking about. That's apparently a jackal den. Come on, jackals, out you come. No, they're not listening to me today. They've decided they're going to do their own thing altogether, which I suppose is no surprise. Like I say, the weather is not fantastic, and it's amazing to kind of watch these little bat-eared foxes. They do not blink. Must I read them a poem or a story like Taylor? That's probably what the problem is that they're missing Taylor. Taylor used to love the jackals, and she used to read them poems and stories and do all kinds of things, and to try and kind of get them to encourage them to be a little bit more open about their sort of lifestyle and to be better viewed. And so maybe I'll have to take up Taylor's kind of mantle in that regard. Actually, there's a jackal there. I can see one. So you see to the left there, straight in front of us, Arch, It's going across the top of a mound, so it's not the mound that we thought. Is it that one? Yes, I think it's that one on top. You see, it heard the word story. Yes, you're right, Kirsty. You see, Kirsty was the one that initiated that conversation, and it heard the word story, and look, there's the jackal on top of its mound. Now, I don't know if that's where the den is, but at least we've spotted one, and I was hoping that they were going to come out, and it's nice to know that there's also a jackal den around. That's very, very cool. There's a little black-backed jackal, as you can see. Now, where are you going to trot off to? Let's see. Off it goes. Now, is it going to go back to the same little mound that we were showing you just now before? Let's see. Where are you trotting off to? I always love the way jackals trot. They always look so proud of themselves as they run. They kind of got this high gait and this little head that bobs around, and then that long fluffy tail. It always looks like they're up to something when they're trotting about, as though they know where they're going and that they're on a secret mission to go and sort something out. So it's quite cool to watch their sort of behavior. Just found something to snack on, I think, as well. There will be a lot of food for these guys too. They also are not impartial to feeding off a few insects as well, and given the amount of insects that have stung and kind of released formic acid all over us. Archie, are you also getting hit by insects? Yep, Archie as well. So it's this itch, and then this, like, it's a painful kind of itch that you get from these little things, and they get everywhere. They are absolutely tiny, and so I hope that the jackal is eating all of them so that I don't have to deal with them anymore. It would be nice, because our bat-eared foxes are not helping us at all. At least the jackal is fairly active and kind of moving around. It's slowly heading towards that little mound that everyone was talking about, and so let's see, maybe if it gets to the mound, little ones will come out. How small were the little ones? Does anyone know? Were they tiny, or were they already quite big by the time we saw them? It would be interesting to kind of know. You can see it kind of trotting towards that mound, and we're almost there. Come on, little jackal, a little further. No, there's another little one in front. So there's a bit of a greeting going on. Hello. That's quite cool, isn't it? That's very cool. Now, these might actually be the young ones. It's difficult to say. They're so far away from where I am. That size is a tricky thing. But let's see them going, kind of trotting towards that little den. It's amazing, their camouflage. They must have been there the whole time, and we were looking in that direction, but we saw absolutely nothing. But they obviously have been hanging about the whole time. And when they lie down, that sort of mottled mantle that they've got on their backs is really an incredible kind of camouflage. It's amazing actually how well that blends in. You think it would stand out given how dark it is, but funny enough, when it's in the grass and they kind of sit, it becomes really tricky to be able to actually see them. So Michelle, you say the jackal pups were about 4 to 5 months old already. Okay, so they were quite big already. So that could very well be them, those two little ones. Maybe the adults aren't here. How many did we see? 2 or 3 or 1? I take it that you said pups, that there was more than one. So I'd imagine 2 is probably. Now, are you going to hide behind the bush? Of course, it's going to hide behind the bush. It's going to sit exactly where we can't see it. Of course. Because that's what animals do. Animals are here to test our patience at times. Where are you off to? Let's see now. So this is roughly where I saw them the other day, the two of them kind of playing around. So I thought maybe it was in that kind of area. Well, I thought maybe to the right was where the den was, but evidently it must be that mound that you guys were telling me about just now, because they're kind of hanging around, and of course they literally are behind the bush now. They won't move. Jackals, be like the foxes, be good to us. No, they're going to stay behind the bush. No, they're there. See, these guys actually listen. They're pretty good. You talk to them and out they come, and then they even listen when you tell them don't stay behind the bush. So the two of them are kind of going to trot to the right-hand side. Like I say, I wonder if maybe the den hasn't moved slightly, because when I saw them the other day, this is roughly, they were heading kind of a little bit maybe further back than where they are from where we are. There's a little mound that you're going to see if they keep going to the right in the background, and that's where they were kind of trotting about. There we go, in the back there. That's where I last saw them sort of messing around, and that looks very denny, doesn't it? It looks like a good den spot. So maybe they've moved to that side, I don't know. Leah, you said you think there were 2 little pups. Okay, so maybe these are the 2 pups that have grown. They don't look like fully grown adults from here. It's obviously depth is always tricky. So this could be the two little ones that are messing about and the adults are nowhere to be found. Or, I suppose by now, I mean, when were they last seen? So I'm not sure when they were last seen, but there's 3 of them exactly. So, okay, so there's a puppy for sure, the one that's getting its little face licked. Yes, there we go. There's definitely one in the middle there, so kind of facing us every now and then. That's definitely a little puppy. Now the others, I'm not quite sure whether they're the adults or not, but there we go. There's little playful games. No, those are definitely 2 young ones by the looks of things. They kind of got young faces, don't they? Super cute little things though. Look like trouble though, yes. Now we're going to bite each other, we're going to maim each other. And this is typical of young animals. You'll see it with lions, you see it with leopards, you see it with these guys, is that they are very, very playful. What's interesting with the bat-eared foxes, funny enough, is that they aren't nearly as playful as these jackals. I have yet to see the bat-eared foxes playing. And I've spent now, this is I think the 5th time that I've been here, and all I've ever seen is curled up little balls lying on the ground. I suppose they do play, but probably during the night, and they're just exhausted by the time we get here. And that's why they're always curled up. But the jackals definitely seem to have a lot more energy than what the bat-eared foxes do this morning. And they're being up to no good, to a little bit of mischief as they kind of bite one another. So I wonder if these are all the little ones, and then the adults, like I say, are not around at the moment. Anyway, how wonderful to have 2 dens of 2 different animals very close together. I think it's nice. Good. Now, talking about little carnivores and omnivores and various other things, Pat, well, he's made his way to the largest of the carnivores that we see at Djuma.
Big carnivores, that is definitely correct. We have ourselves 3 lions, or 3 lionesses, should I say, right here. 3 adult female lions of the Talamati pride, we believe. Now, as for the size of the Talamati pride itself, I'm not actually 100% certain on that. What I do know is that we have 3 of the females who are very inactive right now. I mean, there is a little bit of movement, we can see there, one giving itself a nice scratch behind the neck there. I'm sure that can only feel amazing. Whoa, really getting in there. But it is a cold morning. It is quite chilly and pretty overcast. So I believe that if they are going to move, today's a good time for them. It has been very hot lately, and so these cool weathers, I'm sure, are a blessing to these big cats. They can get up and move around a bit more, and they won't be panting so heavy. It looks like we've got a little bit of grooming between these 2 lionesses right now, which is very sweet, very cute to watch. Snuggled up there. And grooming is important in both bonding and also, of course, to keep parasites and other nasty little critters off, or out or off of the hair, out of the skin. And yeah, of course, it helps to solidify those social bonds that these lions have. Being pack animals, they do like each other's companies. So Charlotte, that's a great question. So they have black on the behind of their ears, so that other lions can see them and can follow them when they're in a hunt or when they're doing something that involves one another. So just like in leopards we see, they will have white bits on the back of their tails and on the back of their ears to signal to one another. So it's kind of a way of communication without having to use your vocal cords. And they, if we, can we get a look at their tail? Let's see if we can get a shot at the end of the tail there. We can see that they've got that kind of tuft as well. So this is kind of similar, and you'll notice that it's black as well, like the backside of those ears. And if you compare it to leopards, they'll have a white patch there and a white patch on the backside of their ears. So we can see that similarity there. This shot right now, the ear just looks exactly like a plush toy to me just then, like a little soft animal or something. And it looks like something just caught the attention of one of them, but obviously nothing too major. Back down to rest. What a beautiful, beautiful morning it is here. It is a bit overcast and chilly, as I said, but it's kind of nice. It's refreshing after these few hot days. So it's really nice, and it's good to see, since I've been back from leave even, I was only gone from the actual camp for 5 days, and the amount of greenery that has grown since I've left has been just unbelievable. This place has almost transformed what seems to be overnight. It's awesome to see what the rain does here. So these lionesses obviously don't have any males hanging around them. Sid Hart, do I think male lions are more aggressive than females? Well, that kind of depends on the situation. So males will be more aggressive when it comes to territorial type displays and fighting with other males for mating rights and territory. But with the females, they will do a majority of the hunting as well. So they will get quite aggressive when it comes to hunting. So it really does depend on the situation. But either way, if I saw a male or a female lion coming towards me, I think I would treat both sexes with equal respect, for sure. They are both big animals. The males do grow larger than the females, but even the females, they can get whopping well over 100 kilos or 220 pounds, well over. Let's leave these slow-moving lions and going to Brent, who is apparently doing a Ferrari safari.
We are indeed. Jamie's out trying to do cat report, but she's found something that she doesn't need for cat report, but we're not going to say no to, so hold on. We did go for a little loop to check for Tinganana. I mean, not Tingananga. Oh, I gave it away. I meant Kalamba and Tandi, but no luck there. And Jamie called in. Anna was on the move. She heard him calling, and now he is lying and posing beautifully for everyone. On. Oh, bouncy, bouncy. Whee! And there's Jamie. Hi, Jamie. Hi, Trish. Hi, Batman. Let's zoom in on Batman so he can give us a smile. Oh, he's got to go hide behind his camera. As always. But, of course, beautiful Tingana up on the dam, an older dam wall. So, from Twin Dams.
You're welcome.
I did say thank you.
No, I'm just saying you're welcome.
My your pleasure. There we go. Tingana. You're off.
Palazzo Matt can come in.
I think the cruiser's struggling with the sand.
Yes, I know. It was quite funny because you zipped over.
Here we go. Bye, Jamie. Bye, Trish. Bye, Craig. Craig, it's okay to smile. Smile, Craig. Smile. Batman, the man of few words and few smiles. Okay. So, Tingana, as usual, was found because he makes a lot of noise when he's not on a kill. He looks like he's relatively well fed. It's always nice to sort of get eye level to a leopard. You can hear, can you see the bird that's shouting at him, David? I'm just looking. Can hear some upset testiculars. Tracy says he's looking good, and Tracy's not talking about Tingana, she's talking about Batman the cameraman. Tingana is also looking in fine fettle this morning. He is very close to our southern boundary though. The Duke of Djuma. It's hard to believe that when I first arrived, Tingana's core territory lay well outside Djuma. It lay far to the west. We'd only very seldom see him on the western boundary of Djuma. Then with the Anderson male moving in, and Mvula's old age, the Duke moved to the east. Look at that. Isn't that wonderful? Costa is wondering, do we know who Tingana's parents were? We don't. He arrived as an unknown shy male some years back. So, unfortunately, we do not know where he comes from. Probably from Ottawa in the west. But as we know, male dispersal leopards can cover vast amounts of ground in their search for territory. Now, the most impressive feat by a young dispersal male was recorded by Panthera. They put a satellite collar on 2 young males in Pinda Private Game Reserve in northern Zululand, and the one young male ended up at Crocodile Bridge in the Kruger, and the other went all the way south into the Eastern Cape, into the Transkei, before coming back into Natal. So young dispersal males are capable of doing vast distances. And that young male who moved from Pinda to Crocodile Bridge probably went through Mozambique and possibly Swaziland to get there. KB would like to know, how much bigger is Tingana than Hosana these days? Still considerably larger. He's probably still got 20-25 kilos on Hosana in weight. Hosana is just, well, nearly 3. He's got a lot more growing still to do. He'll only get to his full size around 5. Beautiful kitties. I was hoping he was going to be on the move a bit more. There we go. Tingy doing what Tingy does best, making a noise. Yeah. He's the only male leopard that I've spent a lot of time with that will soar at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Most male leopards will keep their soaring till early morning and night time, but not Tingana. He wants to make sure everyone knows he's the boss all the time. He does do some lazy soaring as well. lying flat on his side. I've seen him soar. Hey, silly cat. He is posing beautifully this morning. Oh, well, we're going to see what Mr. Tingana gets up to next. But in the meantime, we're going to send you a few thousand kilometers to the north to my dear friend Tristan, who's looking at buffalo.
Well, hopefully he'll get up to lots of things. It's nice to hear that he's been found and that he's still looking as magnificent as ever and soaring away and still kind of marking territory. So glad that there's an update on him. But we are sitting currently with, well, probably one of the larger herds of buffalo I've seen in the triangle. It's been hanging around this area for the last, well, ever since I've got here, really. And it's a seriously large grouping. They kind of stretch out all the way around. You'll see lots and lots of them are lying down, so tricky to actually get an idea of how many are there. And then it looks like they kind of peter out. As you'll see, they'll come to the right a little bit further, and it looks as though there's not too many more of them. And you think, well, it's not actually that big a herd at all. It's only probably, 100 buffalo. But then you come across the road and to my right hand side, and you will see what I am talking about. There extends the rest of the herd, which is tricky to see too because it's quite deep here, and kind of all over the place. So I would say that there's probably a good 300 of them here, and there was actually, it seems as though they might have split up a little bit because it looked even bigger the other day. We watched them come down the escarpment on my way home the other day, and there was just this whole black mass of buffalo moving down the escarpment to this area where we are right now. So you can see there are still lots and lots and lots of them. They kind of stretch all over the place, and they're milling around and sort of quite spread out, and that's probably because there's really not too many predators that are around right now, and so they kind of have the luxury of being able to spread out quite a bit. The other thing with buffalo is that, remember, in a herd like this, there's very few things, there's insects literally all over the place. There's very few that will be able to challenge this bigger kind of grouping of buffalo. Now I'm going to try and move a little bit closer so we can actually see them a bit better. I just wanted to stop far away so that you can get an idea of how many there were. Randall, does a buffalo produce a good steak? No is the answer to that. So the problem with these buffalo is that generally the meat that you get off them is incredibly tough. So most of the time when buffalo is used for food, you'll find that the guys will use it to do generally stews or pies or anything where it can be cooked off for a long period of time, and then that's when they'll kind of eat it. But no, they don't produce a nice steak apparently. The steak is no good at all. It's just tough and is not very nice to eat. So buffalo steak is probably not the best option at all. But like I say, you can see it's an yes, but their cheese is exceptionally good. So you might have missed this conversation, Randall, that buffalo make an incredible cheese. We discussed it at length a few months ago. They actually, in fact, cheese and milkshakes is their speciality. They will do a good milkshake too, and there are a few good milkshake bars that are opened by buffalo in various districts around Africa. So, they do a sterling effort with that. And you can see they're shaking their heads just as much as we kind of trying to swat these insects away. There are hundreds of them out this morning. I don't know why it's so bad this morning. It's the worst I've ever had it, but they are a tiny little insect, and they, like I say, cause havoc, and I'm yet to actually discover exactly what they are. They look like they're possibly from the ant family. So that's what my guess would be, is that it's just the reproductive members of a certain ant species that we get out here. But I'm trying to see, Arch, can you get this one on the steering wheel from me so I can show everybody what these little creatures sent from Satan look like? So there you go, you can see it just at the end of my finger. That is the size of said insect, and they land on you, and then they, like I say, secrete this little formic acid that causes you to itch and burn at the same time, but doesn't last that long. So it's not like an all-day thing. It's just a sort of 15-20 minute feeling, and then it kind of disappears. But they are horrible, and Jamie and I always used to talk about these things and how much we hated them. So like I say, I needed Jamie on drive this morning so she could sympathize with my pain of going through millions of these little guys. And as soon as you stop, they just kind of all over you. So you can see there's like a cloud of them on my right hand side here, which is probably quite tricky for you guys to see on the camera, but there's like a cloud that's kind of hanging around, and they would probably be attracted to the buffalo. Most insects are attracted to buffalo. They can harness the salts of the sweat of the buffalo, as well as all kinds of other things that they can land on. And so you typically, when you're around buffalo herds, even in South Africa, you generally are absolutely covered by insects that are kind of attracted to the herd itself. So always pleasant to be amongst them. Exactly, Mrs. Lapwing. Come to the Mara, it will be fun, they said. Rain and insects. That's my Mara experience. So two different times that I've been here with SafariLive, and it's just rained both times, and lots of insects. And I even got, maybe some of you have noticed that my one eye doesn't look right at the moment. So my right eye is not in great shape at the moment. You can see over here and underneath a little bit, and even on the top, I got hit by a beetle, which I think was a blister beetle, because they kind of got these welts that developed afterwards, and I got hit at about 40 kilometers an hour, which is never a pleasant experience whenever you get hit by a beetle. Jamie actually got really bad. She got hit with one, and it got into her eye, and her whole eye swelled up, and it was really quite gross. Brent was very worried about her. They wanted to actually they were thinking about taking her to the hospital. But so yeah, I've been beaten up by the Mara. I've been rained on. I've had insects invading, and even a beetle to the eye, which has caused me to have a little bit of a dodgy eye, which is not ideal, because given that we need our eyes to do our job a lot of the time, it would be nice if we didn't. Hey, you guys, you're not allowed on my jacket. Off you get. Go. Now, Jamie apparently is giving me trouble about why I'm playing a small violin. Jamie Patterson, I distinctly remember you playing the very same violin when you got your beetle in the eye. In fact, Jamie was, like I said, it was quite serious. I mean, we actually shouldn't joke about that incident, because her eye did not look good at all. She looked, I don't know if any of you ever remember Safari the leopard. She had that big protruding red kind of eye that was damaged. Oh, hello, little pink nose. And so, you know, she had this, Safari had this horrible eye, and Jamie Patterson's eye resembled that for a few days, which is probably quite disturbing. But Brent got a big shock when Jamie arrived back at camp with this eye that looked horrendous. Right. Yes, it is hysterical, but it's true. So Jamie Patterson played a very good violin that day too. So you can't call it's like pot calling kettle black, really, when you start talking about violins. But anyway, we are whinging this morning. I suppose we should stop whinging, and we should enjoy the company of the buffalo and the fact that we're in one of the most magnificent areas in the world. And don't let me deter you with the fact that there's insects. Just come when it doesn't rain. So generally, when it's the migration season, is probably the best time. Good. We're going to leave these buffalo alone so I can stop being accosted by these thousands of insects. We're going to go try and see if we can look at the ellies that are further down, because they don't attract nearly as many. And so while we do that, let's send you back across to Pat, who's looking at some sleepy lions that I'm pretty sure would love these buffalo to be near them.
Well, Trist, I'm sorry that you got bugged out there. See what I did? Well, somehow our flat cats have gotten even flatter. There has been little movement here with these 3 lionesses of the Talamati pride, we believe. Now, we don't often see the Talamati pride, and that is why we don't know a great deal about them. They kind of come from they tend to be a bit further north from where we are allowed to go, so we don't check in on them that often. But we do know that there are more than 3 females in this pride. And as for where the rest of them are, your guess is as good as mine. It could be that they were hunting and unintentionally got split up, or perhaps there was some younger cubs or sub-adults in the pride that have been kind of, well, not scared off, but they're trying to protect them from perhaps maybe the evoker males coming through, because that could be dangerous to a young male lion at this stage right now. But they don't seem to be doing a great deal of anything, including contact calling, so I don't think they're too worried by the separation at this stage. I think they're just worried about getting some sleep. It's hard to see their bellies right now. I'm not sure how full they would be or not. Thank you, Leah. That's a great rhyme. Pat. No, what was it? Pat with his hat with my flat cat. That's great. I'm trying to think of something to add to it now. Thank you, Leah. That was great. That was great. Perhaps you should consider a career in hip-hop or rap. Oh, we have some movement. They're doing something. Looks like something has gotten a little bit of their attention, but nothing great. Back down. Nico, I don't think the lions get too cold in winter. They are big animals, so they will. Their interaction of temperature between them and their environment will be different. And yeah, they've got a lot of muscle and they hunt. And also, like what we're seeing between these two cuties right now, they can also use each other's body warmth as well to keep each other warm. So I don't think they have too much of a problem with the cold in winter. I think they probably would struggle more in summer with the heat. You can see the effect that heat does have on cats, especially lions. When it's a hot day, you will not see them do much. I mean, I suppose we're not really seeing them do much right now, but yes, they'll be even more inactive during a hot day. Isn't this a cute shot though on the left here of these two cuddling? But we'll leave these two to snuggle up and go back across to Tristan, who is in the Mara, and hopefully he has gotten out of his insects.
Well, good luck, Pat. Hopefully you'll find something else when you depart from those lines. But as you can see, we're looking at a bird that, if you ever come to the Mara, you will never forget, because they are absolutely everywhere here. This particular one is very puffy at the moment because it's busy grooming and kind of cleaning itself. So they're called yellow-throated longclaws. I'm sure many of you have seen us put them on screen before, and you can see where the longclaw name comes from. If you look at the back sort of toe that goes backwards, you'll see there's a massive claw there. That's kind of where they get their name. So very, very, very long, sharp little claws that they've got coming off their toes, but they are beautiful because of that bright yellow kind of gold throat that they've got. And you can see it kind of only shows when they turn a certain way. So they've got a bit of camouflage when they've got their backs to a predator. They've got that kind of neutral coloration that will blend in with the grass, and then to display to one another and to be able to attract mates, they've got this beautiful coloration around the throat area with a little black sort of chin strap that comes down. So a very, very pretty bird, and they call non-stop when it rains. So if you've had a bit of rain, then you'll find these guys are not too far away and they will be making quite a bit of noise. But I like them. I think they're a beautiful bird. We do see them at Yuma. Very, very sort of, well, I suppose it's not common, but they are around if you look for them. It's just seldom get them on camera because they're a little bit more flighty there than they are here. Here they're so used to the cars kind of coming up and down that you'll get long kind of periods where you can sit with them and they don't actually move too much at all. So it's quite nice actually to watch them. And like I say, they make a lot of noise out here. Their call is pretty much heard all the time. I'll try to find it for you quickly so you can hear what I'm talking about. You'll also be able to probably hear right now a balloon coming back over our heads, which is parcel of this time of the day in the Mara. There we go. Okay, so here's the call of a yellow-throated longclaw. So that is the call that you will hear when you drive around all the time. Now it's slightly different actually in real life. It's not quite as high pitched as what you're hearing there. The app hasn't quite got it that right. It's close, but it's, like I say, a little bit more high pitched than what they actually sound like in real life. But you can see this guy's just taking it very easy, very happy. Probably trying to dry off a little bit as well. And imagine it's got quite wet, and so once it's dried off and groomed itself and made itself look pretty, then you'll find that it will start moving around. And they often are very close to the sides of roads or in amongst big herds of animals, so you'll find them kind of milling about, and they often you see them sort of flying over the top of these buffalo herds, or like I say, right next to the roads where they'll just kind of skulk about, and there we go, off it goes. And you can see the buffalo kind of still in the background. But I did say we were going to leave these buffalo because there's just the most atrocious amount of insects that are with them, and I can see a bird of prey in the tree that I want to go investigate up ahead, as well as some zebras and some ellies. So I'm going to head there to go and see quickly what's going on that side. But while we do that, let's send you back across to Brent Leo Smith with Tinga.
Yes, Tingy is deciding he likes the high spots today. He's just chilling on top of another big termite mound above the Mowati River. As he just crossed the river and went flat here. Thought he was going to do a proper Tingana move and would have to go back down, but fortunately for us, we don't have to. He likes to make life a little bit difficult from time to time, old Tinganana. Hey Tingy. And of course he's sitting in a spot where we cannot see his front, we can only see his back, because his front is facing quite a steep little Tumbuti thicket. Oh, we're going to get up and move now. Good boy. Such an incredibly vocal cat, Tingana. As you can see, we're right on a steep bank above the Mowati here. Let's not go forward. Are we going to go forward? No, of course we're not going to go forward. That would be the end of the... Now, unfortunately, the only way to get out of this little spot is to reverse. And we're quite lucky with Tingana, the fact that he soars so frequently. Where are we off to now, mister? Deborah is wondering, will his neck get any bigger? No, it will not, Deborah. He is an adult male. He's actually a very old adult male. So his neck is not going to get any bigger than it already is. If anything, it might shrink as he gets older. Let's try and keep up with him now. Oh, bouncy bounce. Lisa is wondering, what does it mean exactly when a leopard soars? Well, Lisa, what he's doing is proclaiming territory. He's telling all the other leopards that he is the boss, the big boy, the male in this area. And to a lesser degree, it's also advertising to the females. Hey, ladies, I'm here. If you're an estrus, I'm your guy. He's just going to go. He's just going through a particularly thick patch. We'll get another view of him shortly as I zoot around. Yana is wondering, is the sawing anything like chuffing? It is exactly the opposite. It is absolutely nothing like chuffing. Chuffing is close contact calling, very soft, meant only to be heard from a short distance and almost exclusively between mother and cub. where there is sawing is meant to be heard by all who can hear, for as far a distance as possible. Okay, let me just have a quick look here. I think he might have spotted something. He just stopped. No, he hasn't spotted anything. So because he has not spotted anything, we're going to go all the way across to the Masai Mara to see Tristan, who's doing a little bit of birding.
Well, yes, we have spotted something of our own, though. So while Tingana hasn't spotted anything, we at least have got something. And I said there was a bird of prey in the tree ahead, and it's one of my favorite vultures. It's a massive lapid-faced vulture, so the biggest of the vultures that we see. And you can see, look at the size of that beak. It is huge, and they will go after big chunks of flesh. So they often are the ones that kind of dominate a carcass just from a size point of view. They're just so much bigger and bulkier than all of the others. I mean, this guy, when it's fully grown and is a big adult, and kind of is as big as it can get, it'll get close to 8 kilograms. So that's what, just over sort of 17 pounds, almost 18 pounds, and will have a wingspan that will be close to, should be about just over 9 point something feet. It's a massive wingspan, 2.8 meters, which is huge. So these guys, you see them kind of cruising around, and it's amazing when they land at a carcass because everybody just kind of parts as they walk through, and they've got this attitude, and you can see they've even got this angry kind of look about them as they go. But that beak is just so much bigger than all the others, and it's perfectly designed to tear off massive chunks off a carcass. So they'll go after big kind of pieces of meat and bits of organs, and they're not going to be the ones that are going to scrape the bone and kind of get all of the flesh off the bone itself. That's going to be left to the guys with the smaller beaks, like the Egyptian and hooded vultures, and you'll find these guys will be big bulk feeders, and then between the hoodeds and these guys will come the kind of whitebacks and the repels and the white-headeds. But they really are an impressive bird, and you kind of can never get a sense of their scale until you see one kind of fly and you see just how big their wingspan is. Now I'm going to have to move because I've blocked the whole road, so I do apologize for 2 seconds. There's a vehicle that needs to come past, and obviously we've, like I say, blocked the road itself. So just say hello to the guys quickly. It's part of the park rangers that are here at the moment. Now hopefully I haven't put Archie in a bad place with the roof. Archie, are we alright? Yes, it looks like we're okay. So there's also another bird that's sitting with the vulture. So from probably not the prettiest bird in the world to one of the prettier ones, there's a lilac-breasted roller that's in the same tree as our vulture. That's also just taking it very easy at the moment. So Lauren, you say, how can vultures fly after eating 17 kgs? Now I'm not sure, Lauren, where you get that from, but there's very few vultures that will be able to pick away 17 kilograms of meat, given that that would be double their body weight. So where they would put that, I'm not quite sure. Most of them do not eat anywhere near that. In fact, all of them don't eat anywhere near that. They'll only be eating a few, maybe even a kilogram at most at a time. Sometimes maybe a little bit more in lapid-faced vultures, kind of if concerned, and from there you'll find that their crop swells a little bit, but they'll still be able to take off. I mean, there's no ways that they would ever be able to eat 17 kilograms of meat. Like I say, that's a fallacy. It's just not possible, because the bird itself, like I say, it only weighs 8 kilograms at maximum. I mean, these guys are between sort of 6 and 8. And so they would be eating, like I say, more than double their body weight to be able to get the food that they need, which would be, to be able to eat that much is impossible. Like I say, they wouldn't be able to even store it. So they can take off because they don't eat anywhere near there. And remember that these guys also have huge wings. They have massive, powerful wings set that they're able to then kind of use to get up and off the ground even after they have fed. But you'll find when they have fed a lot that they don't generally fly too far. They'll go and sit on a tree, digest a little bit, and then they take off and they'll ride thermals, which obviously is hugely energy efficient. Right, we're going to have to move, Archie. We're being attacked by insects of the highest order. They're everywhere today, so we need to just move a little bit. Otherwise, we're going to just be one big insect, and I'll have a face that will just resemble an insect face. It'll be like that Batman movie where they give that that drug that makes people see nightmares, and so you guys all you'll see is my face, but it'll be crawling with insects, which should be like a horror movie rather than a live safari. So let's rather carry on. Lauren, you say you misunderstood. No problem, Lauren. I thought maybe that was what you kind of were going at, but I thought maybe you'd read it somewhere, because sometimes there's these ridiculous facts around on the internet. I don't know if I'd call them facts, but it's ridiculous things that are put on the internet that, you know, often people will kind of read, and so it's no problem whatsoever. It's part and parcel of our shows, that we can talk to one another and we can have discussions about things, and hopefully can educate, and we can be educated ourselves too. That's one of the best things about this show, is that it's so nice because it's a kind of a collective community where everybody can benefit and learn, and even us, even though we try and kind of help and try and, like I say, educate as much as we can, you guys help us a lot at times too, and that's what makes it so rewarding, is that there's this kind of unified sort of community is probably the best way to put it, that is able to kind of discuss things. Right, I'm going to try and just put some distance between me and these insects for a little bit. It's also starting to rain, and so we might have to drop covers just now, but before we think about doing that, let's send you back across to Brent and Tinga.
Well, I don't think Tristy's playing a small violin this morning. I think he's playing quite a large one. Shame. Poor Tristan. In the Masai Mara. Such a tough place. All the lions. But we definitely have the advantage when it comes to leopards here at Djuma. And we have a very dopey, dozy Tingana, who's moved up to another spot of high ground. Michael is wondering how much or how often do lions respond to leopard sawing. I think not very often, Michael. It'd have to be very, very close for them to respond. But as a general rule, I would say they will listen to it, but unless it's very close, they sort of ignore it. Oh, tired kitty. Now, of course, he's probably been walking quite a big distance today on territorial patrols, especially after the rain. They like to remark all their scent marks. And I've got a quiz for you. Apart from lions, leopard and cheetah, who can name another animal that after the rain will go and remark the majority of their scent marks, probably even more religiously than a lion or a leopard would? Hashtag SafariLive if you know the answer. I think I might catch you lot out on this one. There's a few different species, actually a few different correct answers, but we'll see which ones you guys come up with. Kirsten's standard response to every quiz I ask has come through yet again. No, Kirsten, it is not a duck-billed platypus. To be honest, I'm not even sure how or if a duck-billed platypus is territorial, or how they would mark territory. MGN says a worm. No, that was not quite what I was looking for. Then a worm. Indigo Girl says hyena. Ooh, Indigo Girl. They will definitely do after the rain, but not quite as religiously as the animal I'm talking about. Nancy says a honey badger. Ooh, Nancy. No, not the honey badger. Donald says Pat. Well, I'm not sure about Pat. I think he's a bit far out of his normal territory out here. It'd be quite brave of him to scent mark profusely around camp. It might offend a few people. Miss Alamandrin says gremlins. Yes, we do tend to get gremlins when the rains arrive, but that is not what I was looking for. Randy, I'm sure tigers do, but they are not what we're looking for here in Africa. In India, I'm sure they go scent marking after the rain. Well done to Michael, Sasha and James. You guys are spot on. Rhino, and in particular black rhino, seem to be far more sort of dogged about scent marking after the rain, but white rhino do as well. But yes, well done, guys. Tingy, it's been a tough night. Snoozy time. He does look ever so comfortable, doesn't he? I almost think we should. You almost want to go try it out. Kayleen would like to know how much rain has Juma got so far. Kayleen, I'm not 100% sure for the whole year because I wasn't here for a lot of the year, but I've been keeping track of December. I think we've got about 170 mils throughout the rest of the year. But on December, I would say we're close to 50, if not over 50 mils already this far in December. Average rainfall since 1983 for this part of the world is about 80, 90 mils for December. So I would say we're over halfway there when it comes to our December rainfall. It has become quite late though, compared to what we'd normally expect. We would have normally expected quite a bit more rain by this stage already. But it is greening up quickly. Okay, we're gonna hope Mr. T gets up on the move, but while he is a flat cat, let's send you across to Tristan, who's still doing some birding.
I hope so too, Brenty. Hopefully he'll get up and do something. But anyway, I was kind of driving along thinking just now, the area that we're driving is right up near the river, and in May, June, July, there was crowned cranes absolutely everywhere here, and I haven't really seen many of them since I've been back, and I was thinking to myself, I wonder where they've gone. And as we said that, we're around the bend, there were two crowned cranes moving about. So such a beautiful, beautiful bird, and always enjoy spending time just watching them kind of going about their business, especially when they go to the toilet just like that. It's always the most delightful way to watch them. But no, in all seriousness though, they are really pretty birds, and they have this incredible kind of call that sometimes resonates through this area. And I always enjoy kind of watching them move about. They, particularly when they've got their little ones, because the little ones are super cute, and they kind of, the adults sort of usher them along, and they go and they look for all kinds of little bits of food and walk around. And they've got to be one of the most sort of spectacular looking kind of birds that we get in the Mara system, or in fact probably even in Africa, with this crazy big crown, as the name suggests, and then these beautiful whites and beiges that kind of run through their body, and they have the most incredible eye. So from here it's difficult to see it, but they've got this sort of lightish aquamarine eye that is really very, very pretty. I'll try to see if I can find a picture of it for all of you so that you can see what I'm talking about. But it's an incredible kind of look that they've got, and then that mixed with that sort of white patch and then this little red wattle that they've got under their throat makes for a very intriguing looking bird, and one that certainly grabs the attention of most that sees it. And I know a lot of you enjoy the crown cranes. You often ask if we can find them and try and see them, and so I'm glad that we've managed to find some today that we can actually show you guys, which is very, very cool. Now, I found a picture of its eye, so I can show you kind of, I suppose aquamarine is probably not the best actual description for the eye itself, but as you can see there, that's what I'm talking about. The eye itself is this kind of bluish coloration. Is that not pretty? I think that's a very, very, very pretty kind of face. Now, Connie Bay, you say they've got a flamingo vibe to them. They do, don't they? They look a little flamingo-ish in their way they kind of go about things. And funny enough, actually, where we are right now, there were flamingos here in June. Was it June? June. Yes, it was June. There was flamingos in this particular section where we are now. Unfortunately, those flamingos did not survive. They were seen the one day, and the next day they unfortunately died, which is not ideal. Shame. Alright, well, talking about birds, sounds like Pat is doing a spot of birding of his own, and he's got probably some of the loudest that we get at Djuma.
Yes, we definitely heard these guys before we saw them, and they are doing what appears to be flag waving right now, which is awesome. So I suppose I should start with what birds we are looking at. We are looking at the green wood hoopoe, and flag waving is a really cool thing that two neighbouring flocks will do. So we've got another flock here. I'm not sure whether we can get it, Seb. Can you see just through there? Just through straight there, yeah, in there. So this was the other flock that they were up against, I suppose. So there must be some territorial boundaries here. And what flag waving is we kind of saw it just at the very start there, where we saw them moving their tails back and forward. And so one will get a piece of usually bark, sometimes it's another material, but usually bark, and they'll start waving it while the other ones kind of move back and forth. And they'll both keep doing this until one team gives up, and then the other one wins. And I think it's quite a nice way of sorting out territorial disputes. No violence involved, and it's a pretty cool display to watch as well from these beautiful birds. Now, they are called green wood hoopoes, but most of the time we see them, they are black, and that is because of iridescence. Have we lost them?
Yeah, I don't have the visual anymore.
Okay, yeah, because of iridescence. So when we look at the feathers, if the light isn't hitting them right, they will be black. But because of the iridescence, the keratin in the feathers, when the light hits it right, you'll see this green iridescence coming off of their feathers. And that is how you can tell it's a green wood hoopoe. But most of the time we see them, they are black. So we have lost them now. Let's move on. We just had a look in Torchwood to see if we could find Tundi and Tralamba, but no luck there. Now we're moving further down. Tingana has also been seen around the area this morning. So there is a bit of action on hand. Jeez, it's green here. It's so nice to see. I quite like it, the overcast mornings when it's so green. You really get the nature pop. If you know what I mean. Nancy. So Nancy is telling us that the wood hoopoes were number 90 on her birding list, which is quite a good achievement. Well done, Nancy. I believe other people have around, I remember Big Birding Day, a couple saying they had 100 plus. So it's good to see you all following along and getting these birds down. We actually have our own bird list going, us trainees. I'm not sure what we're on now, but before leave we were on 50. Well, I'm going to continue my search for whatever may come, and let's link to Brent, I think, with Tingana.
Yes, and the Duke is still being very lazy on top of his big termite mound. He looks very comfy, I must say. Head is up. Looking to the west where he's come from. I think he actually came from the south and then has headed west once he's got into Djuma. And hopefully he'll be around this afternoon as well. He doesn't decide to move too far. Giving himself a good preen. Oh, thank you so much, Debbie. Oh, Duke, what are you up to? As I was having a stretch, it looked like he was going to have a stretch. Debbie says she's might answer late or might not answer sometimes at all, but is going to miss my quizzes. Well, I'll try do a quiz a week on social media. How's that, Debbie? I'll try keep the quizzes up. Once a week, I'll do a quiz. And Duke is having a scratch. While Tingana is doing his morning yoga. I'm pretty sure the name for that is going to be inappropriate, so I'm not going to mention it. And we're going to set you back to Tristan and the Mara.
Well, talking about yoga, we have two that are trying to do, I suppose, some form of yoga, in that this male is trying to test this female. So as she's kind of walked along, he was sniffing behind her and she urinated, and well, he stuck his nose and mouth right into her urine and kind of scented her and just tried to work out whether or not she's in an estrous cycle that he can potentially mate with her. After that, it seems as though he wasn't too keen, and he's now just left her to kind of stand by herself while she goes, or she's giving him privacy while she goes to the toilet, because she was just going to the proper toilet now. And so the two of them kind of split apart, but it was definitely lots of kind of sniffing and following for a while, and now all of a sudden they're kind of broken apart because, of course, we're now live. They would not be together and display the interesting behavior that is when giraffe kind of start to think about mating. It's always quite intriguing to watch how the male smells her and like I say, uses his organ of Jacobson, particularly with her urine. So he'll try and kind of get that urine into the mouth and then start to kind of work out what's going on with her from there. What's very funny though is that you can see that these giraffe at some point during the course of the evening have laid down, and when giraffe lay down, they will basically sit with their legs folded underneath them and their neck straight up. And the reason you can tell that they've been laying down, and probably the female is going to be easier here because she's facing in a slightly better direction, but look at her knees. You can see how muddy her knees are. So they've been lying down, and that's where they've kind of bent down and put their legs on the ground, and they've got these big dark black knees at the moment from all the mud. And that's also where they would have pushed to try and get themselves back up. Those knees sink into the mud a little bit deeper, and that's why they've kind of got this black sort of marking. So sometimes you can tell things about animals that you just, without actually seeing it, by just noticing smaller little details on them. And it's a very cool kind of marking that they get. You see it here in the Mara quite often after rain, but very, very cool to see. Now, Leah, yes, it is awkward. You can imagine it's all neck and legs, and trying to get that all kind of figured out between two members of the same two members of the same species to mate is always very, very tricky, and so you get this kind of odd situation. Now, my favorite thing ever is the school bus that has just passed us. So there's a school bus that drives around the Mara, and it's a bright yellow one that's just got this big kind of writing school bus on it, but it's actually a staff bus that transports people from the community to one of the lodges in to Serena. But it's always funny to watch this big yellow bus kind of drive down the road. But yes, very, very awkward for giraffe to mate. It's not ideal. It's a bit of a tricky business, and poor female has got to not only got to kind of hold up her own weight, but has got to now hold up a male who weighs more than she does, and try and kind of balance all of that while they're mating. It's quite entertaining actually watching giraffe mate. There's nothing what would the word be, nothing smooth about it. It is the definition of awkward when they try and actually mate. Maybe not as much as rhinos. Rhinos make me laugh the most because it just defies kind of physics the way that they have to do it. But these guys are also pretty high up there in terms of awkward mating stances. The other one that's also always looks so awkward is wild dogs. Wild dogs have the most awkward way of doing things. They kind of latch on, and it just seems as though it's all a bit weird with them. The cats seem a lot more kind of relaxed about the way that they do things. Elephants, I suppose, also it's awkward. Tortoises is also an awkward mating story. Shells are not ideal and not designed to aid in the mating process, so they have a bit of a tough time of it. Are you going to prove us wrong, young lady? She's saying awkward nothing. I don't know if you saw there the tongue that came out as well. It's amazing how long that tongue is and how deft they touches with it and how they're able to kind of get what they need. And you can see here in Amara, it's quite interesting how low the giraffe feed. Obviously there's not huge amounts of vegetation high up here given how open it is, but they spend a lot of their time bent over feeding on small little bushes. In South Africa we don't see our giraffe feeding this low almost ever. They've spoilt. They can stay standing for the most part. These guys have to be flexible and carry on kind of bending and making sure that they find places where they can find food, which means that they obviously generally end up having to stretch it out a little bit to actually get to what they need down below. Very nice though. The giraffe in the Mara are beautiful. The pattern on their coats is always so nice. I thoroughly enjoy seeing the Maasai giraffe. They really are very, very pretty animals. You can see there the pattern kind of, it almost looks as though it's, you know, when you've got kind of paint in water and there's those little fingers of paint that kind of stretch out, often their little patterns look a little bit like that, as though there's kind of colour has been dropped into water and it's just leaked out. Nature girl, nothing really. Giraffe don't make much noise. They are quite quiet animals. Only time they'll really kind of make a noise is when they potentially see lions, and they'll more snort than anything else. They don't actually have a call like an impala, or you know, when they make their rutting sound or anything like that. So they're quite quiet animals, and it's very seldom that you actually hear them, and only really every now and then, even with lions, will you hear them make an alarm call. For the most part they're actually quite quiet and don't sort of do too much in the way of noise making. They are not nearly as vocal as some of the other animals. Right, our giraffe have left us, of course. They would decide to kind of head off in a different direction, so we'll have to go find something else to look at. Now hopefully that rain stops. It was raining just now and it doesn't look exactly great to the south, does it? It looks rather miserable there, so I think it's going to continue to rain throughout the day, unfortunately, which I was hoping we were going to get some sunshine today just to dry everything up. As much as it's nice to have water, it's also nice to have a little bit of sunshine as well. Now we've got the worst bump in the whole world. Yes, just kind of break your neck if you're not careful when going through there. Oh, I was hoping we would find some, oh, there's some buffalo in the distance that are right down the road far in front of us. There we go, there's some buffalo. Okay, well, Unfortunately, it is that time, though, that the Juma crew, well, they're going to be heading off. They've had an early start to the day with the drone test. We're going to see what we can find a little bit. We'll see also how the weather plays out, as to depend on whether we're going to go live with any sort of unscheduled things. So pay attention. If you see a notification, then jump on. But anyway, from Brent and Pat and myself, it's been an absolute pleasure. Kirsty also in final control. We'll see you all this afternoon on our Sunset Safari.